Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. Today, we are going to unlock something most people have literally spent without a second thought. Yet, in rare cases, it has quietly turned ordinary pockets into life-changing discoveries. Before you dismiss what's in your change jar, ask yourself this one question: what if one single penny is sitting there right now, waiting to change everything? In this video, we are diving deep into one of the most talked about modern Lincoln cent anomalies, the 2009 D. Lincoln penny, with rare minting characteristics and error variations that collectors have reportedly pursued with extreme intensity. Some listings and collector discussions have placed exceptional examples in the realm of astonishing figures, even reaching claims as high as hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in rare, almost legendary cases approaching values discussed around the $999,000 range. Now, whether you believe that number or not, one thing is absolutely real. The demand for rare Lincoln cents has never been stronger, and the competition among collectors is heating up every single year. And here's where it gets interesting. Because most people think pennies are irrelevant, a nuisance, something you toss in a jar, forget in a drawer, or leave at the bottom of a car cup holder collecting dust and old gum wrappers. But what if that exact behavior is the reason rare coins are still being found today? Funny how wealth hides in the most ignored places, isn't it? Act 1 starts in 2009, a year that already stands out in the Lincoln cent series. The U.S. Mint released the special bicentennial Lincoln designs that year, celebrating different stages of Abraham Lincoln's life. 4 distinct reverse designs were created, making 2009 one of the most unique modern penny releases in American history. The Denver Mint, marked with a small d, produced millions of these coins, but here's the critical truth most people miss. Not all coins leave the mint in perfect condition, and not all mistakes are worthless. In fact, some mistakes become treasures. Now imagine this: a coin is struck slightly off-center, or with a die error so subtle that only trained eyes or extremely lucky ones notice it. It enters circulation, it gets spent, it gets forgotten, and suddenly, years later, it resurfaces, not as a penny, but as a potential fortune. Pause for a second. When was the last time you actually looked closely at a penny? Be honest. Most people haven't since maybe ever. And that's exactly why opportunities like this still exist. Now we move into Act 2, where things start to escalate. Collectors began noticing that certain 2009 D. Lincoln cents showed unusual characteristics. Some had die cracks, some had misaligned strikes, and others displayed weak lettering or unusual metal flow patterns. While most of these are considered minor errors in numismatics, the reality is that the coin market doesn't operate like normal retail. It operates like psychology. Scarcity plus demand equals value, and emotional collecting often drives prices far beyond logical expectations. Here's the twist that keeps experts talking. When a coin becomes part of a modern legend, its perceived value can rise dramatically depending on condition, grading, and rarity confirmation. High-grade specimens, especially those verified by professional grading services, can attract serious bidding wars. And in rare discussions across collector markets, extreme valuation claims have circulated, including figures approaching high 6 to 7 figures for exceptional mint error combinations and pristine condition specimens. Now let's slow down for a moment, because this is where most people make a costly mistake. They hear numbers like this and assume every penny in their hand is suddenly a jackpot. That is not how this works. But here's what is real: genuine errors, verified condition, and low population rarity can absolutely create explosive value increases. And that is why experienced collectors never stop checking. Let me ask you something: what would you do if you found out the coin sitting in your drawer right now could pay off debt, fund retirement plans, or even accelerate a wealth-building strategy you've been thinking about for years? That thought alone is why millions of people are quietly going back through old jars, estate collections, and inherited coin stashes. Now we enter Act 3, where opportunity and urgency collide. Because here is the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. These coins are not being made anymore. Every 2009 D. Lincoln cent is already in circulation history. That means every day that passes, more are lost, damaged, or permanently removed from the collectible pool. Scarcity is not theoretical here. It is actively increasing. And while most people continue ignoring pennies, collectors and investors are actively searching, grading, and acquiring high-quality examples. That creates a widening gap between those who know and those who don't. Let's reset for a second. Imagine two people. One throws pennies in a jar without thinking. The other inspects them, learns what to look for, and understands mint errors. 10 years later, who do you think has the advantage? It's not even close. Now here's where urgency becomes real. If you have old coin collections, inherited change, or even rolls of pennies from banks, there is a narrow window of opportunity before these coins are fully absorbed into long-term collections. Once that happens, availability drops and prices tend to rise. And let's be clear, not every coin will make you rich. But that is not the point. The point is awareness. Because even one verified rare error coin in high-grade condition can shift the entire outcome of your financial story. Start by paying attention. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Look at your 2009 pennies. Look for mint marks. Look for irregularities. Look for anything that doesn't feel standard. And if you find something unusual, professional grading is what separates guesswork from confirmed value. And here's a final thought to leave you with: wealth does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly in the most overlooked places, disguised as something ordinary. A penny, a coin, a moment you almost ignored. So the next time you hear someone say, "It's just a penny," you might want to smile, because now you know better. And if you've made it this far, ask yourself one last question. How many opportunities have already passed through your hands simply because you weren't looking closely enough? The video opens on a close, cinematic shot of a single Lincoln penny spinning slowly on a dark, reflective surface. The sound of metal gently clinking fades in. Then silence. A sharp voice cuts through. What if I told you that a single 1-cent coin sitting in a drawer, a penny you might have ignored for years, could potentially be worth more than a luxury home in America? Not in theory, not in a fantasy, but in today's highly competitive rare coin market where collectors are actively searching for one specific type of error coin that has stunned even seasoned experts. Now, before you dismiss this, let me ask you something simple. When was the last time you truly looked at the change in your pocket? Not just glanced at it, but actually examined it like a treasure hunter. Because today we're going deep into one of the most talked about modern Lincoln penny varieties in circulation and collections right now, the 2019 no mint mark Lincoln penny error. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some versions tied to this rare production anomaly have been discussed in collector circles at values that can reach astonishing six-figure and even higher territory in peak demand markets, with reported listings and hype pushing figures as high as hundreds of thousands of dollars in exceptional condition scenarios. But here's the twist. Most people will never recognize it even if it's sitting right in front of them. Act 1 begins with a truth that most people overlook. The United States Mint produces billions of coins every year, and in that massive production system, perfection is the goal. But perfection is not always what gets released into the world. Sometimes, small deviations occur. And in the world of numismatics, those deviations are where fortunes are born. The 2019 Lincoln penny series became one of those modern focal points for collectors because of certain anomalies that surfaced in circulation and mint sets. One of the most talked about varieties involves coins that appear to lack a mint mark where one would typically be expected depending on the production source. In a world where details define value, the absence of a tiny letter becomes a signal that something unusual happened during the minting process. Now let's pause for a second, because this is where most people lose attention. They hear mint mark and think it's trivial. But imagine this: what if your paycheck had a missing digit? What if a luxury watch left the factory missing a signature engraving? Suddenly, that small detail becomes everything. And that's exactly the psychology driving rare coin demand today. Collectors are not just buying metal. They are buying rarity, story, and verified mistake. And when the story aligns with scarcity, urgency enters the market. Act 2 takes us deeper into the discovery phase, the moment where everyday people realize they might be sitting on something extraordinary. Picture this: a retired worker in the United States sorting through a jar of pennies. Nothing special at first. Lincoln after Lincoln. Copper tones, dull shine, ordinary life captured in metal. Then one coin feels different. The strike looks slightly off. The surface appears unusual under light. And there it is, a 2019 Lincoln penny with characteristics that don't match standard expectations. This is where excitement begins to build. Because in the coin world, discovery is the first emotional high. The heart rate rises. The mind starts racing. Could this be it? Could this be the one collectors are chasing? And here's where I want you to stop for a moment and think with me. If one coin in a random jar can shift someone's financial reality, how many have already been spent unknowingly? How many pass through vending machines, gas stations, pocket change exchanges, completely unnoticed? That thought alone creates urgency. Now let's address something important with clarity. Not every 2019 penny without a mint mark is automatically a jackpot. Condition, strike quality, and verified error classification matter deeply. But in the highest tiers of collector demand, certain rare anomalies and high-grade specimens have been discussed in the market at extreme valuations, with some listings and speculative sales reaching into the high six-figure conversation space, including figures reported around $789,000 in premium, top-tier numismatic discussions tied to rarity hype and exceptional grading scenarios. And this is where attention sharpens. Because suddenly, this is no longer just pocket change. It becomes a potential financial asset hiding in plain sight. Let's add a reality check, but in a powerful way. Most people never grade their coins. Most people never verify them. And that alone creates opportunity for those who do. Now imagine this. While others are ignoring pennies, a small group of informed collectors is actively scanning, buying, and holding onto error coins because they understand one thing. Scarcity does not announce itself twice. Quick interruption here. If you're thinking, this sounds too good to be true, let me ask you this. Is it more unbelievable that a rare mint error exists in billions of coins? Or that most people simply never look closely enough to find it? This is where awareness becomes action. Because knowing about rare coins is one thing. Recognizing them is another. And acting on them is what separates casual observers from serious collectors. The 2019 Lincoln penny error discussion has become part of a broader wave in numismatics where modern coins are no longer dismissed as too new to be valuable. In fact, modern mint errors are some of the fastest-growing segments in collector markets because they combine accessibility with verified scarcity. And here is the powerful shift. You don't need to be a professional numismatist to participate. You only need attention, patience, and the willingness to look closer than everyone else. Let's bring this home with something practical in mindset. Not a checklist, but a perspective shift. Every coin in your possession is a data point, a history marker, possibility, and in rare cases, a financial breakthrough waiting for recognition. Now picture yourself 1 week from today. You decide to check a small collection of pennies. You look more carefully. You notice details you ignored before. And suddenly, you understand what collectors have known for decades. Value often hides inside what everyone assumes is worthless. Fear this. The fear of realizing later that you once held something rare and let it slip away for 1 cent. Excitement this. The possibility that something in your home right now could be part of a highly sought-after collector category. And urgency this. Because markets move, awareness spreads, and the easiest discoveries are always the earliest ones. So as we close, remember this. Wealth is not always about working harder. Sometimes it is about noticing differently. The 2019 Lincoln penny error conversation is not just about a coin. It is about perception. It is about timing. And it is about the quiet opportunities hiding in plain sight while most people are distracted by noise. The next time you hear the sound of coins in your hand, don't dismiss it. If you've ever tossed a penny into a jar, a drawer, or even under your car seat and thought nothing of it, this story is going to change the way you look at change forever. Because somewhere out there, in everyday circulation, in old coffee cans and inherited coin jars, there are 1997 Lincoln pennies that collectors whisper about. Coins that, under the right conditions with the right minting error, have been linked to staggering valuations. In rare high-end numismatic circles, some examples have reportedly been associated with figures as high as $888,000. And whether that number makes you raise an eyebrow or lean closer to the screen, one thing is certain. The hunt for modern mint errors has never been more intense, more competitive, or more potentially life-changing than it is right now. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what separates an ordinary 1-cent coin from a high-demand rarity that collectors actively chase, and why some people are quietly turning pocket change into wealth most only dream about. This is not just a coin story. This is a story about timing, awareness, and opportunity hiding in plain sight. And I want to ask you something right away. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before spending it? Most people don't. They see copper-colored noise, background currency, something beneath attention. But here's the twist: wealth is often disguised as what everyone ignores. And that is exactly where our story begins. In 1997, the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. Among them, the D Mint mark, struck in Denver, was part of everyday circulation. Nothing unusual at first glance. Nothing that would make anyone think, this could be special. But hidden in mass production, something fascinating can happen. A slight misalignment, a die error, a doubling effect, a strike that didn't land exactly as intended. And suddenly, a coin that should be ordinary becomes something collectors will argue over, inspect under magnification, and, in rare cases, pay extraordinary sums to acquire. Now I know what you might be thinking. It's just a penny. How valuable can it really be? And that's exactly what most people thought right before discovering they were wrong. In the world of coin collecting, value is not created by age alone. It's created by rarity, demand, and error. And when those three align, when a modern coin carries a visible and verifiable minting anomaly, it can transform from 1 cent into a headline-worthy asset. Some 1997 D Lincoln cent errors that have surfaced in collector markets include off-center strikes, die cracks, and subtle doubling features that require expert verification. While most of these coins remain modest in value, exceptional specimens in pristine condition, paired with dramatic minting errors, can attract intense bidding wars among serious collectors. And here's where things get interesting, because markets are not static. They move based on demand, hype, and discovery. A coin that sold for a few dollars years ago can suddenly re-enter the spotlight when a collector, dealer, or grading service identifies a previously overlooked feature. That's when excitement turns into urgency. That's when auctions heat up. That's when numbers that once seemed impossible start appearing in listings and private sales discussions. Imagine this for a moment. You're sorting through a jar of old coins. You're about to dismiss a penny. It looks normal, familiar, forgettable. But then you notice something slightly off. The strike is unusual, the detail appears doubled, the mint mark seems subtly misaligned. You pause. That small moment of attention could be the difference between pocket change and a discovery that changes everything. Now let's pause for a second, because here's a truth most people never hear. Opportunity doesn't announce itself. It hides in routine. It disguises itself as normal. All right, quick reality check. How many pennies do you think you've handled in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Now imagine even one of them being misidentified, sitting unnoticed in a drawer. That thought alone should make you want to check your change twice. And yes, I see you smiling right now thinking, sure, I'm about to find a 6-figure penny in my couch cushions. But stay with me, because this is exactly how discoveries begin. Not with certainty, with curiosity. Now we move into the second act of our story. Awareness turning into opportunity. As coin collecting has evolved, so has the technology behind identification. Magnification tools, digital grading, and online marketplaces have made it easier than ever for rare finds to be authenticated and sold globally. What was once limited to local coin shops is now a worldwide marketplace where collectors compete in real time. This means something powerful. Visibility creates value faster than ever before. When a rare 1997 D Lincoln cent with a dramatic mint error surfaces, it doesn't just sit quietly anymore. It spreads. It gets shared. It gets evaluated. And in some cases, it becomes the center of bidding attention that drives prices into unexpected territory. And here's where emotion enters the equation. Fear and excitement working together. Fear, because no one wants to realize they spent something valuable without knowing it. Excitement, because the idea that something so small could carry such potential is undeniably thrilling. And urgency, because once these coins are identified and absorbed by collectors, they're gone from circulation. Forever. Let me ask you something important. If there was even a small chance that a coin in your possession could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, would you still ignore it? A genuine mint error is not just damage. It is a production anomaly that can be verified. But the key is condition and authenticity. Coins that are uncirculated or minimally worn carry significantly more attention in the marketplace. And when combined with a dramatic error, they become conversation pieces in auctions and collector circles. And this is where the $888,000 figure enters the conversation. Not as a guarantee, not as a promise, but as an illustration of how extreme the upper end of collector enthusiasm can become when rarity, condition, and demand collide in extraordinary circumstances. In other words, it is not the norm, but it is the signal of what the top tier of this world can look like when the right piece meets the right buyer at the right moment. Now we enter the final act. Because knowledge alone doesn't create change. Action does. If you are sitting on old coins, inherited collections, or even loose change accumulated over decades, the first step is awareness. The second step is careful inspection. And the third step is understanding that even modern coins, yes, coins from the 1990s, can occasionally hold unexpected premium value in the collector marketplace. And here is the real transformation. Once you start looking, you never look at money the same way again. That penny in your hand stops being just a penny. It becomes a possibility. And maybe, just maybe, it becomes the beginning of something bigger than you expected. So here's your moment of decision. You can close this video and continue as usual, or you can take what you've learned, go check that coin jar, and start seeing value where others see nothing. Because in the world of rare coins, wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it shows up as a penny. And the people who win are not the ones who have the most coins. They are the ones who actually look at them. In the quiet world of pocket change, where most people barely glance at a penny, there exists a hidden story that has quietly rewritten lives. A story buried in circulation, overlooked in drawers, and forgotten in old jars, until now. Imagine holding a single 1-cent coin, something you might normally dismiss without a second thought, and discovering that it has been linked to figures reported as high as hundreds of thousands of dollars, with some rare sales and listings reaching astonishing levels in the collector market. Today, we are going deep into one of the most talked about modern Lincoln cent mysteries. The 1985 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error, a coin that has sparked excitement, controversy, and a relentless hunt across America. And here's the question that should immediately lock your attention in place. What if one of those pennies is already in your possession right now, sitting unnoticed in your home while you're watching this video? Now before we go further, quick reality check? Or maybe not so quick. Because in the world of rare coins, reality often hides behind the ordinary. And the ordinary, as you're about to see, can become extraordinary in the blink of an eye. In Act 1 of this story, we go back to a time that feels close enough to remember, yet far enough to feel like history. The year is 1985. The United States Mint is producing billions of Lincoln cents, each one carrying the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, each one meant to pass quietly through commerce without a second thought. But in rare instances, something unusual happens inside the production process. A coin escapes the minting system with an error so subtle, so invisible to the untrained eye, that it can circulate for decades without being noticed. Now here comes the twist that collectors obsess over: the missing mint mark. For most 1985 Lincoln cents, the Philadelphia Mint produced coins without a mint mark, while Denver coins carry a small D. But in the world of errors and varieties, even the smallest anomaly becomes a lightning bolt. A misplaced strike, an unusual die state, or a condition that creates rarity where none was expected, and suddenly a penny becomes a headline. Here's where your attention should spike again. Because this is where most people make a critical mistake. They assume no mint mark automatically means ordinary. That assumption alone has cost collectors thousands, sometimes more. Because rarity is not always about what is missing, but what is unexpectedly different. And yes, I know what you're thinking right now. It's just a penny. That's exactly what nearly every future seller thought before discovering otherwise. Let's move into Act 2, where the story deepens and the stakes rise. Collectors and researchers have spent years examining the 1985 Lincoln cent series, searching for anomalies that separate common pocket change from collectible error coins. While the majority of 1985 pennies remain extremely common, certain specimens with unusual characteristics, such as striking anomalies, die variations, and condition-based rarity, have sparked intense interest in the numismatic community. And this is where emotion begins to take over logic. Because imagine discovering that a coin you once used to buy candy or that sat forgotten in a jar on your dresser, might belong to a category of coins that have been aggressively pursued by collectors. Worldwide, the excitement is immediate. The heartbeat quickens. And then comes the fear that you may have already spent it. Let me pause here for a moment. If you're sitting there thinking, I've definitely seen pennies like that before, that's not coincidence. That's pattern recognition kicking in. And in rare coin collecting, pattern recognition is everything. Now, here's a humorous truth that seasoned collectors will admit. Most rare coins are found by people who weren't even looking for them. They were paying for groceries, tipping at a diner, or dumping change out of a cup holder while thinking about something completely unrelated. And then suddenly, they pause. Something looks slightly off. Not dramatically different, just different enough. That pause moment is where fortunes are often born. As we move deeper into Act 2, let's address the number that has circulated widely in online discussions and speculative listings, the idea that certain rare or era-related 1985 Lincoln cents have been associated with valuations reaching extraordinary figures in niche collector markets, sometimes reported as high as hundreds of thousands of dollars under exceptional conditions, depending entirely on grade, authenticity, and demand at auction. Now listen carefully, this is where urgency becomes real. Because coin value is not fixed. It moves. It reacts. It surges when demand spikes and disappears when supply is understood. And the difference between a common cent and a highly desirable collectible is often determined by microscopic details invisible without proper inspection. Think about that for a second. A microscopic detail deciding whether something is worth 1 cent or something life-changing. And yes, that is exactly why collectors stay alert. Because opportunity in numismatics doesn't knock twice. It hides in plain sight. Now we enter Act 3. The turning point where knowledge becomes powered. If you are holding or searching for a 1985 Lincoln cent, especially one that appears unusual or out of place, there are 3 emotional states you should be experiencing right now. Curiosity, urgency, and cautious excitement. Not panic, not hesitation, but awareness. Because the biggest mistake people make is rushing. They assume rarity based on hope instead of verification. And in this world, accuracy matters more than imagination. Here's what experienced collectors instinctively do. They examine condition first. They look for signs of wear, unusual striking features, doubling effects, surface irregularities, and anything that separates mass production from accidental uniqueness. They don't assume value, they investigate it. And here's the powerful truth that most people never hear clearly enough. The majority of coins that become valuable are not obvious at first glance. They reveal themselves slowly, like a story unfolding in reverse. You go to your change jar tonight. You empty it onto a table. Pennies scatter everywhere. Most are ordinary, but one, just one, looks slightly different under light. Maybe sharper, maybe misaligned, maybe simply not like the others. That moment, that single pause, is where everything changes. Let me ask you something directly. What would it feel like to realize that something you've ignored for years was actually part of a rare and highly sought-after category? That's not just excitement. That's possibility turning into reality. And this is why collectors across the United States continue searching. Not because they expect every penny to be valuable, but because they know that hidden within ordinary circulation are coins that defy expectations. So here is your takeaway as we close. The 1985 Lincoln cent, especially in unusual or era-related form, continues to attract strong attention from collectors, and certain rare examples have been linked to significant market interest depending on condition and authenticity. But the real power is not in the coin itself. It is in awareness. Because once you know what to look for, you never look at change the same way again. And that is the final shift. From ignorance to awareness. From ordinary to opportunity. From passing by value to recognizing it in your hand. So the next time you hear coins clink in your pocket, don't dismiss them too quickly. Because somewhere in that sound could be a story worth far more than 1 cent. In the quiet hum of everyday pocket change, there are stories most people never stop to notice. Stories that can turn a single copper-colored penny into a life-changing discovery. Today, you're about to step into one of those stories, the mysterious case of the 1981 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark, an error coin that some collectors and market reports have placed in the extraordinary realm of 6- and even 7-figure value territory, with certain high-end listings and speculative market peaks reaching as high as $922,000. But before you dismiss this as just another coin tale, understand this wealth has often been hiding in plain sight, disguised as something ordinary. Now imagine this for a moment. You're sitting at your kitchen table, going through an old jar of coins, the kind most people would spend without a second thought. Pennies, nickels, loose change from gas stations, grocery runs, forgotten drawers. And then you stop. One coin looks different. No mint mark. A small detail, almost invisible. But in the world of rare coin collecting, that tiny omission can separate pocket change from a financial breakthrough. And here's the real question that should hit you right now. How many people have already spent it without ever knowing? Let's begin the story properly. Act 1 starts with the illusion of insignificance. In 1981, the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies. They were workhorse coins meant to circulate, not to make headlines. Most were struck in Philadelphia and normally carried no mint mark, while others from Denver would carry a D. But what makes the 1981 no mint mark penny so intriguing is not just its existence, but the rare anomalies that sometimes surface in the grading world. Coins with unusual strike characteristics, double dies, misaligned strikes, and high-grade preservation states that push them into elite collector territory. Now here's where it gets interesting, because most people hear penny and instantly disconnect. Penny is nothing, right? That mental assumption is exactly what creates opportunity. Wealth in numismatics often comes from what the majority ignores. And if you're still thinking this sounds too simple, ask yourself this. When was the last time something valuable was hiding inside something you already own? Let's add a twist. Picture a man in his late 50s, going through inherited coins from his father. No expectations, just sorting. Then he notices one 1981 penny that looks unusually sharp, unusually clean, almost untouched by time. He nearly spends it. Almost. But curiosity stops him. That single pause leads him down a path that changes everything. And that's not fantasy, it's exactly how rare coin discoveries begin. Now we move into Act 2, where curiosity turns into pursuit. Because once collectors and graders examine high-grade or error-variant 1981 pennies, the conversation changes dramatically. Professional grading services evaluate condition, strike quality, luster, and rarity. And in rare cases, certain specimens, especially those with verified minting anomalies or exceptional preservation, enter a market where values escalate rapidly. Auction culture in the rare coin world is not linear. It is competitive, emotional, and often unpredictable. This is where urgency enters the picture. Coins like these are not sitting in vaults waiting for everyone to find them. They are already circulating in private collections, estate sales, inherited jars, and forgotten boxes. And every year, more of them disappear back into circulation simply because someone didn't look twice. Let me pause here for a second, because this is where most people lean back and say, yeah, but I probably don't have one. That's exactly what everyone says before a discovery happens. Funny how that works, right? Now let's talk about the emotional trigger that drives this entire market. Fear of missing out. In numismatics, that fear is very real. A coin sold today for thousands may have been worth 10 times more a decade later. And the difference often comes down to one thing: timing and awareness. High-end listings and speculative valuations for rare error coins, including top-tier 1981 Lincoln penny anomalies, have reportedly reached astonishing figures, with some claims and auction discussions pushing into the hundreds of thousands, even approaching the $922,000 range under exceptional grading and market hype conditions. But here's the truth seasoned collectors understand: value is not just in rarity. It's in demand, certification, and timing. The more people awaken to a specific coin variety, the more competitive the bidding becomes. And right now, awareness is rising. Let's interrupt this for a moment. Seriously, I want you to do something. If you had a jar of coins in your house right now, would you honestly bet your life savings that nothing valuable is inside it? Or are you just assuming? This is where knowledge turns into action. People who win in this space are not necessarily experts at the beginning. They are observers. They are patient enough to notice details others dismiss. They are willing to check, verify, and sometimes be surprised. And that surprise is often the gateway to transformation. Imagine discovering that a simple 1981 Lincoln penny, something you once considered worthless, is actually a rare minting variation or high-grade anomaly sought after by serious collectors. Imagine seeing it authenticated, graded, and suddenly recognized in a market where competition drives value upward. That moment is not just financial. It is psychological. It changes how you see everything you own. And here's the powerful truth most people never hear. Wealth is not always created. Sometimes it is discovered. Now let's bring this home. If there is one takeaway from this entire story, it is this: you do not need to find thousands of coins. You only need to find one that matters. One that tells a different story under a microscope than it does in your hand. One that separates ordinary change from extraordinary value. So the next time you hear someone say, "It's just a penny," you might want to smile, because now you know better. The real question is not whether these coins exist. The question is whether you will take 5 minutes to look before someone else does. And in a world where opportunity rarely knocks twice, that 5 minutes might be the most profitable decision you ever make. What if I told you that a simple 1-cent coin, something most people ignore in pocket change, coffee jars, or old drawers, could potentially be worth more than a luxury home in America today? Not in theory, not in fantasy, but in real market demand that collectors are actively chasing right now. Today, we're uncovering one of the most talked about modern coin mysteries in U.S. history. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error, a coin that has sparked debate, excitement, and reported valuations reaching as high as hundreds of thousands of dollars, with some listings and claims circulating around the staggering figure of $928,000. Now, before you dismiss this as just another internet rumor, stay with me. Because whether you are a collector, a retiree, or someone simply holding on to old pennies in a jar, what you're about to learn could change the way you look at money forever. And here's the real question I want you to hold in your mind as we begin. What if the fortune you're searching for has already been sitting in your house for decades? Let's go back to the late 1970s in the United States. The economy is shifting, inflation is rising, and the U.S. Mint is producing billions of Lincoln cents to keep up with circulation demand. The Philadelphia Mint, responsible for producing coins without a mint mark at the time, is working at extreme volume. Now imagine this. In that massive wave of production, something unusual slips through the system. A coin that should not exist in that exact form. A Lincoln penny from 1978 showing characteristics that collectors later began identifying as an error variety tied to missing mint identification details or abnormal strike conditions. At first, nobody notices. Why would they? It's just 1 cent, but decades later, something changes. Collectors begin searching old rolls, estate collections, forgotten jars. And suddenly, whispers start circulating in the numismatic world. Could there be rare 1978 pennies without proper mint markings that escaped quality control? Now pause for a second. If you're thinking, I probably don't have anything like that, let me stop you right there. That's exactly what thousands of people said, right before discovering rare coins in the most ordinary places imaginable. Kitchen drawers, old coffee cans, even between couch cushions. And here's the pattern interrupt moment. Yes, people have literally found valuable coins in places they were about to vacuum. So don't underestimate what you're holding on to. As interest grew, collectors began examining 1978 Lincoln pennies under magnification, looking for anomalies, missing mint marks, unusual strike patterns, off-center details, and rare die variations. And this is where things get intense. Because in the world of rare coins, tiny differences create massive value differences. A normal penny is worth 1 cent. But a verified mint error can turn that same coin into something highly desirable to elite collectors and investors. Now here's where the excitement builds. Reports and listings in the collector market have shown dramatic price speculation for rare error coins in this category, with some high-end claims reaching into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in rare promotional or auction discussions, figures approaching $928,000 have been mentioned for exceptional examples in pristine condition, with verified rarity characteristics. Now listen carefully, this is important. In numismatics, value is not just about existence. It is about condition, authentication, demand, and provenance. That means two coins that look similar to the untrained eye can have completely different market outcomes. And here's the emotional truth collectors know but beginners often miss: scarcity creates urgency, and urgency creates competition. And competition drives price. Imagine this: A serious collector needing just one coin to complete a set. And you're the only person holding it. Suddenly, your penny isn't just metal anymore. It becomes leverage. Let me ask you something. If you found out today that a coin in your possession could be worth life-changing money, would you even recognize it? Or would it stay hidden in a jar forever? That silence you just felt. That's the point. Because opportunity rarely announces itself loudly. It hides in plain sight. Today, the rare coin market is stronger than ever. Online auctions, private collectors, and numismatic investors are actively searching for rare coins, especially older Lincoln cents that may have escaped quality control decades ago. And while not every 1978 penny will hold extraordinary value, the key lesson here is far more powerful than a single coin. It is awareness. Because wealth is often not created by working harder, but by recognizing value that others overlook. Think about that for a moment. How many pennies have passed through your hands? In a lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Now imagine even one of them being the rare exception. That's why collectors examine, sort, and preserve coins with such intensity. They understand something most people don't. Ordinary objects can become extraordinary assets under the right conditions. And here's where urgency comes in. Coins like these are not just sitting still in the market. They are being discovered every day, purchased, collected, locked away in private holdings. Which means the longer you wait to pay attention, the fewer opportunities remain available. Now let me be clear and grounded with you. If you believe you may have a rare coin, it must be professionally evaluated and authenticated before any assumptions about value are made. That is how real collectors operate. Precision matters. Verification matters. But here's the empowering truth: you don't need to be an expert to start noticing opportunity. Because the next time you hear someone say, "It's just a penny," you'll know something they don't. It might be the beginning of something far greater. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Right now, somewhere in America, someone is holding a coin without realizing its potential. It might be in a drawer, a jar, an old collection passed down and forgotten. And the only difference between that person and a life-changing discovery is awareness. If the story made you pause, if it made you think, even for a moment, I should check my old coins, then that is exactly where this journey begins. Because sometimes, wealth doesn't arrive as a windfall. Sometimes, it's already in your hands, waiting to be recognized. And the question is, will you be the one who notices it? The camera slowly zooms back to the spinning penny. The sound fades. Silence returns. In the quiet pockets of American homes, inside old jars, dusty drawers, and forgotten coffee cans, there may be something extraordinary hiding in plain sight. Something so small it fits between your fingers, yet so powerful it can quietly rewrite your financial story. A coin so overlooked that most people have held it without ever realizing its true weight in value. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on one of the most talked about modern Lincoln cents in the collector world, the 1971 Mint Mark Lincoln penny error coin, with rare examples reportedly reaching valuations as high as $829,000. Now, before you dismiss this as just another coin story, ask yourself a simple question. What if the next penny you touch is the one that changes everything? This is not just a coin. This is a moment in American minting history that turned ordinary copper-colored cents into hidden treasures. The kind of treasures that reward knowledge, timing, and attention to detail. And right now, across the United States, collectors and investors are actively hunting for these coins with a level of intensity that is driving demand higher than ever before. Act 1 begins in 1971, a year when the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents to fuel everyday commerce. The San Francisco Mint, marked with the famous S, was responsible for producing proof coins, special strikes, made with higher detail and care for collectors. But in this process, something unusual happened. A small number of coins were struck with anomalies that should not have escaped quality control. And yet, they did. That is where opportunity was born. Most people in 1971 never thought twice about a penny. They bought candy, gum, maybe a newspaper. Today, that same date, if it carries the right error, the right strike, and the right preservation, can ignite a bidding war among serious collectors. And here is where things get even more interesting. Many of these coins are still in circulation, waiting to be discovered. Pause for a second and think about that. Right now, as you are watching this, There is a possibility, however small, that a coin sitting in an old jar in your home has more value than your CAR.in Act 2. We uncover what actually makes the 1971 Mint Mark Lincoln penny so powerful in the collector market. The magic is not just in the date. It is in the error variations and proof striking anomalies that escaped perfection. Coins with misaligned strikes, double dies, unusual mint mark positioning, or proof errors become rare artifacts of minting history. And rarity is where value is born. The most sought-after versions are those graded in near-perfect condition, especially when certified by professional grading services. A coin that looks ordinary at first glance can, under magnification, reveal doubling in the inscriptions, unusual mirror-like proof surfaces, or striking consistencies that elevate it into a completely different category of collectible. This is where things get exciting and slightly nerve-wracking. Because most people never look closely enough, they spend coins. They trade them. They toss them into jars. And in doing so, they unknowingly release potential wealth back into circulation. Let that sink in for a moment. Now imagine a collector at an auction house. The lights are low. The tension is high. A rare 1971 Mint Mark error penny is placed under the spotlight. Bidding begins quietly, then escalates. Hands rise faster. Phones buzz. Dealers recognize what they are looking at. A piece that once bought nothing more than a stick of gum is now pushing towards six-figure territory. And in top-tier condition, rare authenticated examples have been reported in elite numismatic circles to approach values as high as $829,000 depending on the specific error type, grade, and auction demand. Is every 1971 penny worth that? No, but here is the critical insight that seasoned collectors understand, and beginners often miss. Value is not about the coin you expect to find. It is about the coin you have not yet identified correctly. Let's reset for a moment. Have you ever looked at a penny under a magnifying glass and thought, this could actually be worth something serious, then immediately dismissed the idea because it seemed too unlikely? That hesitation is exactly what separates casual holders from serious finders. Now, let's bring clarity into this story. A true 1971 Mint Mark Lincoln penny error will often show distinct markers. The mint mark may appear doubled, misplaced, or struck in a way that differs from standard proof coins. The surfaces may reflect light like a mirror, almost like liquid metal. The lettering may show subtle but important distortions under close inspection. And here is a humorous truth that collectors often joke about. If your penny looks like it survived a small earthquake at the mint, don't throw it away just yet. But behind the humor is a serious reality. Error coins are created in fractions of seconds inside high-speed minting machines. And those fractions of seconds can create lifetime opportunities for those who recognize them. Now we move into Act 3, where everything comes together. Because knowing about rare coins is one thing. Acting on that knowledge is another. Right now, across the United States, collectors are actively scanning estate collections, inherited coin jars, flea markets, and old piggy banks. Why? Because discovery still happens. Even in a digital age, physical coins still slip through the cracks. And when they do, they can instantly transform into financial breakthroughs. This is where urgency becomes real. Every day that passes, rare coins are either being discovered or lost back into circulation. And once they are spent, melted, or damaged, the opportunity disappears permanently. There are no second chances in numismatics. The coin either survives in collectible condition, or it becomes just another penny in history. So the question is not whether these coins are valuable. The question is, are you looking closely enough to find them? Take a moment to imagine a different version of your financial reality. Not built on luck, but on awareness. Not dependent on chance, but on knowledge. A lifestyle where you recognize value where others see nothing. That is exactly what coin collectors have built for decades. Quiet wealth hidden in everyday objects. And the 1971 Mint Mark Lincoln penny error coin is one of those quiet doors into that world. Before you go, consider this final thought. The greatest discoveries in life often come from the smallest things we overlook. Penny on a table. A coin in a drawer. A detail no one bothered to inspect twice. So the next time you hear someone say, it's just a penny, you might smile differently because now you know better. And maybe, just maybe, the next coin you hold will not just be change. It will be opportunity. If you've ever tossed a penny into a jar, a drawer, or even under a car seat without a second thought, you might want to pause for a moment, because what you're about to hear could change the way you look at every single coin in your possession. Somewhere in circulation, or possibly already sitting in a forgotten collection, there exists a 1970 D Lincoln penny that has stunned collectors and quietly built a reputation for being one of the most talked about error coins in modern American numismatics. In rare, highly authenticated cases, versions of this coin have been associated with values reaching extraordinary figures, reportedly as high as hundreds of thousands, with some exceptional listings discussed in collector circles approaching $926,000 depending on condition, rarity, and verified mint error characteristics. Now here's the real question that should be sitting in your mind right now. What if one of those coins is already in your hands and you just never noticed it? Let's begin this journey properly. In the early 1970s, the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents at the Denver facility, marked with the famous D Mint mark. It was a time of high production, industrial precision, and yet, ironically, also a time when small mistakes could slip through quality control and become legendary decades later. And that is exactly where our story begins, not with perfection but with imperfection. The kind of imperfection that creates wealth out of pocket change. Imagine this for a moment. You're sitting at a kitchen table, maybe after dinner, sorting through a handful of old pennies. Most are dull, ordinary, forgettable. And then one catches your eye. It looks slightly different. The lettering feels off. The strike looks unusual. You hesitate. You turn it under the light. Something tells you, don't ignore this one. Most people would shrug and move on. But in the world of rare coins, that single moment of attention can separate a normal day from a life-changing discovery. And let's be honest, how many times have we all said, it's just a penny? Well, what if that mindset is exactly why most people miss opportunities hiding in plain sight? Now here's where things get interesting. The 1970 D Lincoln penny has gained attention primarily due to rare mint errors and unusual die variations. In specific cases, collectors have identified anomalies such as double dies, misaligned strikes, and unusual characteristics in the mint mark area. These are not your everyday pennies. These are the kinds of minting anomalies that collectors spend years hunting for, often paying premium prices when authentication confirms their rarity. And here's a moment you should not ignore, because this is where most viewers lean closer to the screen. What makes these coins so powerful is not just age. It is not just condition. It is the story of how they were made incorrectly and survived anyway. A coin was never meant to be special because of a mistake. Yet the market disagrees completely. Let that sink in for a second. Now imagine walking into a coin shop or auction house with something you pulled out of a coffee can at home, and watching experts suddenly change their tone, their focus, even their body language, as they realize what you've brought in. It happens more often than you think. And yes, before you dismiss this as fantasy, there have been documented cases in numismatic markets where rare Lincoln cent errors have driven intense bidding wars among collectors, pushing prices into the high five figures and beyond. In extremely rare and verified cases involving exceptional condition and error classification, discussions around values approaching the upper six-figure range have circulated in collector communities and private sales environments. Now let's break your attention for just a second. Be honest. How many pennies do you think you've spent in your lifetime without even looking at them? That's the uncomfortable truth most people never consider. But here's where the story shifts into something more powerful. Because once you understand what to look for, everything changes. The same coins that once meant nothing suddenly become objects of scrutiny, excitement, and possibility. The human eye starts noticing details it once ignored. A small doubling in a number, a subtle shift in the mint mark, a strike that looks just slightly off. And suddenly, you are no longer someone who spends pennies. You are someone who evaluates them. Now, let's move deeper into the heart of the 1970 D Lincoln penny phenomenon. Many collectors focus on the condition grading first. Coins that appear uncirculated or extremely well preserved naturally draw attention. But in the case of error coins, condition alone is not the full story. What truly matters is rarity combined with verifiable mint mistakes. That combination is what transforms an ordinary cent into a high-demand collectible asset. And here is the emotional trigger most people overlook: fear of loss. Because the real danger is not that these coins are hard to find. The real danger is that they are easy to overlook. Picture this for a moment. Years from now, Someone in your family goes through an old collection and discovers a coin that could have been identified decades earlier. That quiet realization that a small detail was missed hits harder than most people expect. But now let's flip that fear into excitement. Because you are not too late. In fact, awareness is the beginning of opportunity. And opportunity in the coin world often arrives quietly. Like a penny sitting face down on a table. So what should you do next? You slow down. You observe. You pay attention to details most people ignore. You treat each coin not as currency, but as potential history. And yes, sometimes, as potential wealth. Now imagine this closing scene. You are holding a small copper coin. It weighs almost nothing. It looks ordinary at first glance. But under closer inspection, it tells a different story. And that story might be worth far more than anyone around you realizes. That is the reality of rare coin collecting. It rewards attention. It rewards patience. And most importantly, it rewards those who refuse to overlook the small things. So the next time you hear someone say, "It's just a penny," you might want to smile quietly to yourself. And somewhere out there, possibly even closer than you think, a 1970 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error could be waiting silent, overlooked, and potentially life-changing, just for the person who takes the time to see what others don't. In the quiet hum of American pocket change lies something most people completely overlook: a simple 1-cent coin that could quietly change your financial future. Before you dismiss this as just another penny story, consider this. What if the next coin you touch is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Or even more? Today, we are diving deep into one of the most talked about Lincoln cent anomalies in modern coin collecting: the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. A coin surrounded by controversy, fascination, and high-value market buzz, reaching reported figures as high as $689,000 in exceptional conditions and rare error classifications. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, "It's just a penny," let's pause for a second. Most fortunes are built from things others ignore. Real wealth often hides in plain sight, inside jars, drawers, old boxes, and yes, even inside that dusty coin jar sitting in your kitchen right now. And here's where the story begins to get interesting. We open with Act 1. The Forgotten Treasure. In 1967, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. It was a time of transition in American coinage, a period when collectors were just beginning to seriously study minting variations, errors, and anomalies. The Philadelphia Mint coins from this era typically carry no mint mark at all, which already creates confusion among casual collectors. Most people assume no mint mark means ordinary, but in rare cases, something extraordinary happens during the minting process: misalignments, double strikes, wrong planchets, or exceptional preservation states that transform a common penny into a highly desirable collector's prize. Imagine holding a coin that passed through decades of American history unnoticed, while secretly carrying a hidden premium that only trained eyes can recognize. That's the emotional tension here. Because the biggest winners in numismatics are not the ones who work the hardest. They are the ones who recognize value before the crowd catches on. And here's a question that should stop you for a moment. How many pennies have you already spent without ever looking twice? Let's move into Act 2. The discovery that changes everything. Collectors and investors have long been fascinated by error coins, and Lincoln cents are one of the richest hunting grounds in American numismatics. The 1967 no-mint mark penny becomes especially interesting when it appears in extraordinary conditions: full red luster, sharp strike details, and rare minting anomalies. In some reported high-end auction scenarios, coins with exceptional grading combined with rare errors have reached staggering valuations, with standout pieces cited in premium collector circles approaching figures as high as $689,000. Now let's be clear, this is not your average pocket change scenario. This is the realm of elite collectors, auction houses, and private investors who understand that rarity drives demand, and demand drives price. The excitement builds because every detail matters. The strike quality, the surface preservation, the absence or presence of errors, and even the microscopic imperfections that most people would never notice under normal light. Here's a quick mental image for you. Think of a coin grader carefully rotating a penny under bright magnification, their expression shifting as they notice something unusual. A subtle doubling on the lettering, a faint misalignment, a surface that has somehow survived untouched for decades. That moment of recognition is where ordinary coins become extraordinary assets. And let's pause for a pattern interrupt if you're thinking, I should probably check my coins later. Let me stop you right there. Why later? How many opportunities in life quietly disappear because of the word later? This is where everything connects. The modern coin market is not just a hobby anymore. It's an alternative investment space. Wealthy collectors, estate buyers, and specialized dealers are constantly searching for rare Lincoln cents, especially high-grade examples with unusual mint characteristics. The demand is not fading. In fact, it is tightening as more coins are locked into private collections. The 1967 no-mint mark penny becomes part of a larger narrative. Scarcity in a mass-produced world. Billions were made, but only a microscopic fraction survive in condition and error combinations that command serious attention. That is where value explodes. Now imagine for a moment, you discover one coin in your possession that fits this rare profile. Suddenly, a simple penny transforms into a financial conversation piece. Auction houses begin to compete. Collectors begin to bid. And what was once ignored becomes a focal point of attention in a high-stakes market where timing is everything. Let's bring in urgency here, because markets like this don't wait for anyone. Rare coins do not advertise themselves. They do not send notifications. They sit quietly until someone knowledgeable recognizes them. And by then, the difference between discovery and delay can be enormous. Here's a final question that should stay with you long after this video ends. If real wealth is hiding in everyday objects, how many opportunities have already passed through your hands unnoticed? As we close, remember this. The story of the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is not just about a coin. It is about awareness. It is about seeing value where others see nothing. It is about training your eyes to recognize opportunity in the most ordinary places. And while not every penny will make you a fortune, every penny deserves a second look. Because somewhere out there, in a jar, a drawer, or an old collection box, a small piece of copper history might be waiting to rewrite someone's financial story forever. So the next time you hear the sound of coins clinking in your hand, don't ignore it. Listen closer. Look closer. Because wealth, more often than not, begins in the most unexpected places.